Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today on a dark gray day. Dark gray Black Friday. It isn't actually raining, and I don't think it's going to actually rain, but it looks like it, and it feels like it, and it's 89% humidity like it, and there's no light at all. I mean, this Hyde Cottage tends to swallow light as it is, but even so, I mean, it's the middle of the morning, and I've got every light in the place on, trying to make this look like I'm not filming in a closet. Uh, and it's been a weirdly antagonistic day as well. Not just has it felt like the day itself is fighting me at almost every step of the way, but also weirdly people have been antagonistic. Is that because the few people who are around are not in the bosom of their family on the day after Thanksgiving? Is that why I'm getting the crab apples? I don't know one way or another. There was a bright spot. The neighborhood mailman carries a big bag of dog treats. He's the most popular mailman in the neighborhood. All the dogs recognize him. Frieda recognizes him on sight and acts for all the world as if I don't feed her. She sees him and goes crazy to run up to him and get a treat. And every time she does that, I always want to remind her about her very frequent 2 times a week little hunger strikes, where I put out food that I paid good human money for, and she just stares at it and walks away. Nevertheless, we encountered him today on a walk this morning, and she went nuts and ran up to him, and he was petting her and fussing over her, but she really wanted a treat. And he said, "Well, I'm sorry, little one, I don't have my treats with me today." And I thought, good. Inside, I thought, good. This is a good lesson for her, that she doesn't always have to use people for treats. And then he said, "Well, wait, my car's right over here. Let's go and I'll get them from my car." So she got her treat and she got to kiss somebody's. He gets down right to her so that she can kiss his face. She likes to kiss people's noses, but she's tiny. So most people don't actually give her the chance to do that. Most people don't go all the way down to her. Or maybe they're thinking, it's a little dog. Little dogs are sometimes temperamentally unpredictable. So she might be seeming friendly now, but if I put my face in hers, she'll bite me or something like that. Frieda just wants to lick your nose. And he always lets her. But aside from that, it's been a weirdly antagonistic day. It's dark and cloudy, but incredibly humid, so it feels like the worst of winter and the worst of summer at the same time. Those of you who are fans of CPL Radio, of our Book of the Day segment on CPL Radio, a lot of you have gone over there and checked it out. A lot of you have been emailing me back and saying you really like what you see. It is very different from this channel. Most of the time, it's very different from this channel. It's a concerted 10 or 15 minutes where I'm talking critically about one book. I don't usually do that on this channel, and a lot of you have liked that, but I have to say, far more votes for what people like have gone to the fact that there's banter. That it's not just me and the bean. that I get to banter with my producer, Jeff, who is usually in the position of not having read the book, but who is, a librarian with a lot of experience with books and reading, so there's always something to bat back and forth. Except his golden voice has disappeared today. He has some sort of viral infection in the old pipes. So, those of you who follow CPL Radio Book of the Day, there won't be one today. I imagine that he will maybe put a rerun in, but we won't have any new material. We had a great kids book lined up for today, but it's going to have to wait. Until he's better, until he can speak. I was tempted to offer him the all-purpose remedy, which is that when you're in a conversation with Steve, it's not absolutely necessary that you do any talking. But I thought that would be inhospitable, so I just wished him well. But we've got a couple of periodicals and a few packages here that'll get us through. As you can see, when the sun is not out and there's a threat of rain in the air or even a smell of rain in the air, all the life goes out of the bee. All of it. Just goes straight out of her. So you're going to have to deal with a depressed-looking bean. We have the late November issue of The New Yorker with the classic Japanese painting Waves, only they're cresting over a human city. Because this is a rarity for The New Yorker. This is a themed issue. This is all about climate change. As much about climate change as you can get. Even the short story by Louise Erdrich is mostly about climate change. Of course, the incidentals won't be the book reviews, the movie reviews from pornographer Anthony Lane, stuff like that. You won't be able to theme all of that, but the parts that they could assemble, they did. Some very, very good looking pieces in here. And the two books in question are, one is about that new biography of the Huxley family, and one is about Ted Conover's new book, Cheap Land, Colorado. Both of those books I've just recently read in their finished copies, and both I really enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to the reviews. We will see. I had a major bone of contention with the Huxleys and a major bone of contention with Cheap Land, Colorado. Not enjoyment killing by any means, but like I've mentioned many times before, when it comes to book review periodicals, and the other periodical is also a book review, it's not Men's Journal or anything like that, there's a thrill involved when you are a reviewer and you've already read the book, and especially if you don't know the other reviewer, there's a thrill in reading somebody else write, especially at length. The New Yorker gives you 2,000 words about that same book. It's an uneasy thrill because a part of you is wondering, is that reviewer going to catch something that you completely missed that's important to catch? In other words, are they serving their readers better than you did? But there's also, it's not so uncomfortable a thrill. There's also just, are they going to see it in a radically different way than you are? It's not as elemental as, are they going to hate something that you loved? But in this case, with the Huxleys, now that I've read both of them in their finished copies, I had one major concern with the Huxleys. It'll come up in my own review. It's not a major concern in the sense of hurting the book, but it was the one thing that was on my mind. It was the one thing I kept going back to and worrying like a bone when I was done with the book. And the same thing with Cheap Land, Colorado. Now, I'm wondering if these reviewers will have any reservations about the book, and if they do, will it be the same ones? I think the one in Cheap Land, Colorado is fairly obvious. I don't see how, if you're a trained critic, I don't see how you could get more than 100 pages in without noticing it. And by the time you reach 200 pages, your pencil will be jotting, will be noting every place where it happens. We shall see. I will report back. So that's the New Yorker. I think there was an annoying letter as well, but that's no shortage for. Oh well, yeah, there was an annoying letter, but there was also an interesting one. I'm glad I remembered it because I definitely want to read it. The writer comes from Jeffersonville, New York. Any of you from Jeffersonville, New York? Maybe the writer watches this channel. And it's about, I mentioned in a previous look at the New Yorker that Stephanie Burt did a piece on the multiverse, on the concept of a multiverse, multiple parallel dimensions, whether it's, in Marvel Comics, the Marvel Cinematic Universe or whatnot. And someone wrote in with a letter that touched me hard. Stephanie Burt, in her History of Multiverses in Literature and Popular Culture, remarks that, quote, the notion of the multiverse belongs to anyone who can use it to tell a good story. Her remark brought to mind a noteworthy expression of this phenomenon, fan fiction. In the 1960s, many Star Trek viewers became Star Trek storytellers themselves, publishing their own imagined adventures of the Enterprise crew in mimeograph zines that were shared through the mail and in fan conventions. Where you would ask, if you were sharing it in the mail, you would ask that people send you a self-addressed stamped envelope and 25 cents or 50 cents, something like that, to keep your overhead down, not to make a profit. These stories, built around a TV series that embraced the idea of parallel universes, represent a vibrant embodiment of the multiverse. Beyond creating new fictional worlds, they exploded the one-way street of media production and consumption into an endless web of storytelling. I love that phrasing. Exploded the one-way street. Suddenly, it wasn't you just receiving Star Trek stories, you were making your own. Though the regular variations on classic franchises pumped out by studios like Marvel may be profitable, the full potential of the multiverse device lies not just in unlimited dimension available to its characters, but in the sheer number of authors who can tell their stories. And I would argue that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a perfect example of fan fiction. At least in its earlier phases, the phases that ended with Endgame. The phases that ended with Endgame. The so-called fourth and fifth stages of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are the exact opposite of fan fiction. They are enemy fiction. They are fan baiting. I'm going to take these characters that you know and like, I'm intentionally going to sodomize them purely to upset you. Purely to rub your nose in the fact that I sit behind the desk and I'm able to do this, and you don't. No sense of being a caretaker to the characters. Instead, I'm going to bastardize them. I'm going to make them spout whatever Twitter political slogan happens to be foremost on my mind or at the top of my biography today. And if you don't like it, tough. I control these characters now. That is the fourth and fifth stage of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But at least for the first few stages of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I also got, speaking of book reviews, I also got the New York Review of Books, which has a lot of pieces in it that I have no interest in reading. I will read them, but they don't connect with me immediately. And there are a few that do. I think there were 3 that did. Like, for instance, Dan Chasen does the dumb new junk Bob Dylan book. What's it called? The Philosophy of Modern Song. Which he has the nerve in the article to call him Professor Dylan. He's being semi-ironic, but the guy didn't write the book and has no idea what he thinks about the philosophy of modern song. Pure junk. Just pure junk. Why are you reading it? You're not reading it. Why was it written? It wasn't written. Why are you writing about it? Because you love Bob Dylan. Why do you love Bob Dylan? Because he reminds you of a time when you were high. Not because of his singing, or singing in heavy air quotes, not because of the songs, not because of anything, just because it reminds you of something that has nothing to do with his music or him. And here he has written a treatise on modern song. God help us. So that wasn't one of them, but yes, okay, Lynn Hunt reviews Olivier Zuhn's book, The Man Who Understood Democracy, biography of Alexis de Tocqueville. I reviewed that as well. If I remember, I will leave a link down below. I wasn't all that impressed with it, but I can see that it got 2 pages in the New York Review of Books, which is 2,000 words. That's a lot. Probably what will happen here will be that I will clip out the review once I've annotated it. I'm sure that I'll underline it. I'm sure that I'll argue with it. But once I'm done with it, I'll probably clip it out, trim the edges, and tuck it into either a copy. I have a big hardcover annotated edition of Democracy in America, or I have Hugh Brogan's biography of de Tocqueville, which is absolutely masterful. It is, in my opinion, the best biography of de Tocqueville. Certainly, The Man Who Understood Democracy was not a patch on it. I'll probably put it in there. I've learned the subtle art. I clip all the reviews that I think I want. Anything that connects with a book that I have in my collection, anything that I might argue with or want to keep. But I've learned the subtle art of not needing to anchor them in the specific book that they're reviewing. As long as I put it in a book where I'm going to find it. If I want to remember what was his name? Her name, Lynn Hunt. If I want to remember what Lynn Hunt wrote about de Tocqueville, maybe there's a good line in the review that I want to use down the line. If I want to remember what that is, I will go to a de Tocqueville book. I won't go to The Man Who Understood Democracy. I don't even think I kept my copy. But there was another one here. Yes. Edward Mendelsohn reviews Anne Fernald's new edition of Mrs. Dalloway, and also the new annotated Mrs. Dalloway. So it'll be 2 full pages of writing about Virginia Woolf. That's always a lot of fun. And once again, those will, in this case, it'll be far more direct bullseye because I kept the annotated Virginia Woolf. I got a copy of the mail. I wrote about it. I think I wrote about it. If I remember correctly, I will leave a link. And I kept it, of course. I put it on I have a kind of a non-Penguin canonical classics bookcase in the little book room that is badly, badly overburdened. Really, the whole little book room could almost be that. And I put it in there. So the same thing with that one. I will clip the review once I'm done annotating it. I will trim the edges. You trim the edges from, you don't want the ragged edge that goes along when you pull it, or near the staple end when you pull it out of the periodical. And you don't necessarily want all that white space on the side unless that's where you annotated. But you got to remember when you're trimming the reviews that you pull, make sure you keep the bottom where the date and year is. Make sure you do that. But anyway, those are the periodicals, the New Yorker and the New York Review of Books. And then we have 4 packages here. So let's see what we have here. I'm going to guess that these are all 2023 releases, and I'm going to hope that there are no duplicates. Duplicates are a little bit depressing. Let's see here. Okay, this first one is a 2023 release. What is this? What do we have here? This comes out in mid-March. This is In Search of Amrit Kaur, A Lost Princess and Her Vanished World, by Livia Minera Samboy, translated by Todd Portnowitz. The faded sepia tone cover photo on the cover, which is ordinarily verboten in Steve's world, but it's got that nice border that was added to it, and she's lovely. If you're going to do it, this is about the way to do it. Let's see here. This is a transfixing account of Manera Samboy's search to discover the fate of an Indian princess who disappeared shortly after her imprisonment by the Gestapo in Vichy, France. This beautifully written tale about a missing royal also elucidates the precipitous decline of the Indian ruling class under British colonialism. Well, you'd have to bring colonialism into it, wouldn't you? And she was brutally murdered by the Gestapo, but the real villains. Anyway. On a sweltering day in 2007, having recently lost her brother to illness, the author encountered a 1924 photograph of the stunningly elegant princess. The caption purported that she had sold her jewels in occupied Paris to save Jewish lives, only to be arrested by the Gestapo and sent to a concentration camp where she died within a year. Was it true? And if so, how could such a sensational story have gone unnoticed for so long? Instinctively, the author began to pull at every thread in Kaur's story she could find to reveal a more complex and more rewarding portrait of the princess. Readers will be transfixed by the breathtaking wealth and parties of the 20th century aristocracy she describes, the history of the British Raj, and the remarkable figures she meets along the way, some historical, like Maharaja Singh of Kampatala, and the Jewish banker Albert Kahn, and some living. Okay. What was that? Why was that business about the author's brother's illness? Why is that in the pub sheet of a biography of a dead Indian princess? I guess it pretty much has to be, right? All literature, everything that is written of any kind is basically about you. And let's see here. The author also meets Amrit Kaur's daughter, known to all as Bubbles. For Bubbles, who Kaur abandoned in order to go to Paris, her mother's life post-imprisonment is a blank. Her mother's life post-imprisonment. So did she not die in a concentration camp? As the author untangles that history, she realizes her attempts to reconcile Bubbles with her mother's fate mirror her need for reconciliation with her own mother. Okay, all right. So this is an autobiography that is only incidentally and therefore insultingly about its main character. Okay, all right. Well, this doesn't come out until March, so I have time to make my peace with it, and I will just have to hope that despite the pub sheet, keep in mind this is just the pub sheet, not the book. I'll have to hope that despite the pub sheet, that element is kept under control, or that the author, in an introduction or whatever, explicitly describes this as some sort of imaginative memoir. That choking sound you hear is the demon going crazy next to me. She's going crazy. What are you doing? What are you doing? You got a glimpse of the pearly whites there. What are you doing? I know you all want to see this more than you want to hear me go on about a book. So. What are you doing? That doesn't look comfortable at all. Are you going to get up? Or are you just going to lay there like a dead thing? Frieda, your head is down a crack. That's not comfortable. What's the matter? Oh, here we go again. Oh, no. The drama never stops here. It's all right. So we have one book down here, and once again, the day is fighting with me. So let's see what the next one is. God, if the fat of autofiction makes its way into biography, I am done for. Absolutely done for. So let's hope. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, what? All right, some of you will like this. This is a December release. This is not 2023, but It's instead coming up. That must be why this is a finished copy. Yes, this is a finished copy. This is a $17 book from 10 Speed Press. It's by Andrew Schaefer, and it is called Feel the Burn. In case you're wondering, it is a murder mystery starring Bernie Sanders. The Vermont Senator, Bernie Sanders. Let's see here. Fall is bursting out all over Vermont, and while the rest of Congress enjoys its recess, Senator Bernie Sanders has returned to his beloved home state for a weekend of events in Eagle Creek's America's #1 leaf-peeping destination. It's up to intern and Eagle Creek native Crash Robertson to keep the senator on schedule and out of trouble. Crash's hopes for a quiet homecoming are dashed, however, when the lifeless body of a community banker with ties to Big Maple, so not small maple syrup farmers that are all over Vermont, but Big Maple, is found in Lake Champlain. While the sheriff's department closes the case as an accident, a leaked autopsy indicates foul play, with a trail of syrup leading directly to one of the senator's oldest friends. Bernie, taking a page from the cozy mysteries he's addicted to, enlists Crash in a quest to uncover the killer's true identity. Naturally, I'm wondering, to what extent is this done with Bernie Sanders' knowledge or cooperation? Also kind of wondering why the glasses aren't more prominent there. At this distance, at any distance, unless you're stuck right up with your nose against the cover, it looks like Andy Warhol, not Bernie Sanders. If Crash allows the senator to go too far off script, it will be the end of her yet-to-begin political career. But as the suspect list grows to include a tech bro set on disrupting the maple industry, struggling small business owners, and even Crash's own family, she realizes there's more on the line than her own future. Okay. Okay, Andrew Schaefer, gotta know who this is, right? He wrote those. Some of you will remember this. I used to get these at the Monitor in the newsroom. He wrote the Obama-Biden murder mysteries. Some of you may remember some of those, where Joe Biden and Barack Obama solved murder mysteries. And he also wrote the presidential satire, The Day of the Donald. And he lives in Louisville, Kentucky. He doesn't live in Vermont. I wonder if this was done in any way with Bernie Sanders' knowledge. And if it isn't done with his knowledge or with his, approval or whatever, then what does that say about this? Does that mean you could do this with anybody and not be at risk? This is 10 Speed Press. I'm sure would not bring this out if they were at risk of displeasing the senator, or not particularly with Bernie Sanders, but picture if this were done with, say, Ted Cruz. You could easily imagine a law trouble, a lawsuit of some kind. Slander, defamation, appropriation, whatever. I wonder what the law is now. I've never thought about it before. I wonder what the law is concerning using a public figure in this way. What if I wanted to write what if you're using Bernie Sanders as the hero, is that sort of the unwritten agreement? What if you wanted to write a murder mystery series in which the villain was Madison Cawthorn? Not all that much of a stretch. Could you do it without running the risk of legal trouble because he's a public figure? Or was? I don't know. Very interesting. I will of course read this tonight since its date is coming right up. All right, good. Let's move on. This next one is another small cardboard. Let's hope it's not a second copy of Feel the Burn. I've been hit a little too much with doubles lately. Oh no! Oh great! Okay. All right. The other day we were going through the TLS here on this channel, as I am wont to do, and I saw a brief review of a book called Once Upon a Tome: The Adventures of a Bookseller. And I whined for quite some time, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, about how it didn't strike me that it would ever have a U.S. publication, and I really, really wanted to read it. And in case you think that your burden is born alone, I should tell you what my friends, Deb or Sam or anybody who comes on this channel from time to time, could also corroborate, which is that when I complain to everybody. So I'm not just loading you with my troubles. When I saw the review of that book and wanted it, I complained all around. I got a copy. I got a copy of Once Upon a Tome. So this is the American release of The Misadventures of a Rare Bookseller by Oliver Darkshire, which comes out in March of 2023. So there will be an American release of this thing. Let's see what we have here. Oh, we don't have anything here. Okay. The pub sheet just has blurbs. Oh my God, the inside of the book just has. Oh, there we go. Okay. One morning, Oliver Darkshire stepped into the hushed interiors of Henry Southern Limited in London to interview for what he thought would be a year-long bookselling apprenticeship. Captivated by the smell of old books and the temptation of management-approved afternoon nap, Darkshire was soon unteetering stacks of first editions and fending off overeager collectors while placating the store's resident ghost, the late Mr. Southern, hit by a tram. By turns unhinged and earnest, Once Upon a Tome is a hilarious coming-of-age story that brings us into a strange and fascinating profession. Well, strange, certainly, yes. Good Lord, you're not telling me that, you're not telling me that your whole motivation was the smell of old books. I get so sick of hearing that from all and sundry. Oh, I don't want an ebook reader because I love the smell of old books. People just go on ad nauseum about the smell of old books. It's nice smell when it's done, when it's right. A lot of old books really stink, but if it's nice, it's a nice smell. But it's not life defining, and it shouldn't be career defining. And of course, small little parenthetical here. No need to dwell on it. There are no such thing as ghosts. But even so, I have this thing. I feel a little guilty. I whined to all of you, and then I went whining to a publicist. But I'm not going to read this. I'm not going to read it until the new year. So at least I have it. That's good. I love books about books. And then we'll do this final one, and we will be done. Final one, and we'll be done for the day. What do we got? Oh, great. Fantastic. Okay. No sheet on this either. This is the finished copy of something we've already seen. The classical historian James Romm. This is his biography of Demetrius, Sacker of Cities. This is a new entry in Yale University Press. That you can see it on the spine there. Ancient Lives. They're doing because I'm filming in the dark of night. They're doing a series of these little 110-page, 120-page lives. They did Demetrius, Cleopatra, and Crassus for the first three of them. And long may it rain. I love the idea of this thing, as I've mentioned many times. When you give a brief like this, James Romm writes really good works of classical history. And when you give a brief like this to an author like that, or in the case of Cleopatra, it was given to Francine Prose, they know already, you know as the brief giver, they know as the brief receiver, that if a defining feature of the series is its size, and in this case it's true, these are supposed to be short books, there won't ever be a long Ancient Lives book. If you know that already, then oftentimes, I've seen series like this, dozens of them, and oftentimes that can encourage a writer to ponder, as opposed to just grinding through every single fact that we know. To ponder, and often it drives them to eloquence or to deeper insight, because they know that's all they can offer. We don't know so much about Demetrius that you'd need much more room than this. But for instance, Cleopatra has been the subject of endless tomes. It forces you to think about your subject and deliver something that's more than just a biography. All three of these first ones were more than just biographies. They were all delightful. And this may have been my favorite one. I'm hoping that I get a finished copy of the Crassus volume as well. But this may have been my favorite one, so very glad to have it here. What have we got here? I don't have a sheet for it, but The Life of Demetrius, which went from 337 to 283 BC, serves as the through line to the 40 years following the death of Alexander the Great, a time of unparalleled disturbance and instability in the ancient world. With no monarch able to take Alexander's place, his empire fragmented into 5 pieces. Capitalizing on good looks, youth, and sexual prowess, as I myself have often done, Demetrius sought to weld those pieces together and recover the dream of a single world state with a new Alexander, himself, as ruler. He succeeded temporarily, but in crucial colossal engagements, a massive invasion of Egypt, siege of Rhodes that went for a full year, and the Battle of Ipsus, he came up just short. He ended his career in a rash invasion of Asia and became the target of desperate manhunt, only to be captured and destroyed by his own son-in-law. It was tempting when I was reading these to draw parallels, tease out parallels in all of these unconnected lives. Crassus and Cleopatra are not completely unconnected, but one of the little, if I had done that, if I had written at 5,000 words, one of the little threads that I would have teased out here would have been the fatal allure of the East, which is not only represented in a way by Cleopatra, but also which Julius Caesar himself felt. When he was assassinated in the Senate House, he was planning an Eastern campaign of unlimited duration, an open-ended Eastern campaign. And of course, Crassus died in the East, and Demetrius as well. Demetrius didn't die from the hands of the East, but he met his end looking eastward. That was one of the threads. There are a bunch of others that I wanted to do here. Sexual prowess comes into all three books, believe it or not, even Crassus. But very glad to have this. Here's hoping that I get the other two in finished copy. Maybe I will drop a word in the pink and shell-like ear of the publicist and find out if that's going to happen. So there we go. That was the mail and some periodicals. So we have Demetrius, Sacker of Cities. If you see these Yale Ancient Library volumes in your bookstore, I think they all come out in December, get them. If you're interested in biography or ancient history, get them. They are not intimidating in length. They are all three. The first three that Yale chose to start off this series are wonderful and really, really interesting. So worth it. Oh, actually, I should tell you, what are they going to be? Oh, it's an academic press, so they might not put the price on the book. No, they don't. I'm guessing around $35, $30, something like that. We have Demetrius. We have Once Upon a Tome, a product of whining. We have Feel the Burn, a cozy murder mystery starring Bernie Sanders. That raises a whole bunch of questions for me about next year's NaNoWriMo. And we have this thing, which at least on the surface looks like an investigative biography of an Indian princess, but it sounds like it's going to have as much to do with the author as it does with that. And that can be done well. So we will see if it is done well next year. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.